don't know what else to tell him other than it felt right. You know? I was like, hey, man, you know, sometimes you need to fill in the time, and there's no better way of filling that time than artistically.
Than to Photoshop your friends into strange situations.
Is it really that strange, though? I mean...
Yes!
I mean, I made Brian and Sebastian comic characters.
Wait, did you post that on your story?
No, I'll never post that on my story.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Never.
If I'd seen it.
No, they've seen it. I think I've showed it to you.
Did
but
you?
I'll show it to you after.
I don't remember that.
It's my favorite thing ever.
What did you think of the Superman photos I sent you?
I thought they were cool. Yeah, it's it felt like the industrial age.
Yeah,
you know?
I was gonna say I like it because it's very clearly supposed to be like kind of work coveralls that he's got on and like work boots and stuff, which I like.
I like that too.
Because I've been thinking about the comic book story or the superhero story that I've been trying to tell, and I've been thinking about like what kind of costumes I want to have for my characters, and I like that kind of look.
Well, that look says that it's probably during like, you know, the Depression era.
Yeah.
You know, it reminded me a little bit of Red Sun.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's definitely, it definitely has a very kind of working class feel to it, which is part of what I like about it.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine.
You don't imagine Superman usually as the working class, you know, that's the cool thing.
Which is weird because, I mean, obviously, like, the report, like being a reporter is very obviously a very bourgeois position and immediately thrusts you into kind of the bourgeois social class. But yeah, like people forget, like he's more or less kind of a hick.
I know, right?
Like he grew up in Kansas. Yeah, he grew up in Kansas, in rural Kansas.
Yeah, they should do a whole movie of Superman where it's like him on the farm, and he's
they would.
And he's like having to. Well, that's pretty much what Superman and Lois is, you know, at the beginning of the season.
That in Smallville.
Yeah, where they're dealing with the politics. Yeah, in Smallville, where they're dealing with the politics of the land and everything, and local government.
I mean, I even had in my mind like an idea of that. An image of that specific Superman that I sent you, like him, like walking into like a rural credit bank or something, or just like probably not a rural credit
as bank. Superman.
Yeah, like a bank run by like a corrupt banker, and like doing some like Jesus throwing the bankers out of the temple type shit. Yeah, going biblical on their asses. Like I don't know, like it was very cathartic to me.
Well, I'm surprised that when in the Snyderverse, the dead Snyderverse, when Superman came back, it was not 3 days after he died.
Oh God, I don't know if I'm happy or sad that didn't happen. It's so obvious that it's kind of dumb, but
I'm surprised they didn't do that.
It seems like the thing that Snyder would have done. We can blame John Byrne for the Jesus parallels in a.
Well, you can blame Jesus.
I don't want to blame Jesus for that. Jesus already had enough shit pinned on him during his life. I don't want to pin that kind of shit on him during his death.
So you couldn't blame anything on Jesus?
All I can think of. I mean, I can blame him for healing some people, allegedly healing some blind people and feeding some fish. But Mr. Beast has him outclassed on both of those counts.
But like, what if he I'm trying to picture. Because, like on Family Guy, they bring Jesus back all the time.
Yeah.
And like he's just this asshole. He's just this bum who like has sex with Lois and everything. I just imagine having to deal with that version of Jesus, not the Jesus.
Scumbag Jesus.
He's
got that. What kind of hat is that?
Yeah.
That Scumbag Steve has. I don't know what it is. It's horrible.
don't know.
I hate that pattern.
I don't know.
It's terrible.
No, I look at him and I'm like, Jesus. That's who that version is.
See that makes me think of what's his name? Greek Jesus. What's his name?
Did you say Greek?
Yeah, because Jesus' archetype. It's
Hercules.
Oh Jesus. Dionysus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't like archetypally Jesus Jesus fulfills that same kind of archetype where Dionysus was positioned as a kind of a messiah figure in Greek mythology, and there's evidence that he's not like a homegrown god. There's evidence that he may have actually come from I think it's speculated that it's from like Persia that he may have originated,
Hmm.
and that he may have been linked with something like Zoroastrianism. Um,
Well, I just wonder if the door is closed on making those types of parallels with Superman cinematically. Ever since the Snyder Vision, like they leaned so heavy. Like if they were more subtle with it,
I
in
would have
those
been fine
films,
with it.
I would have been more than fine with
Yeah.
it. But because that's going to be there no matter what.
well, and I think
But,
it's appropriate with his character.
With Superman,
Yeah, because he is like his mythology and his backstory is it obviously has a lot of influence from the Bible, and
But those conversations will come up. Like if we're talking about it in a fictitious sense, like
Sure.
Superman is a fictitious character. If a character like that actually existed, those parallels would. I understand that those parallels would be brought up. But
sure,
like,
and I'm sure there would be weirdos who would actually worship him as like a god.
Oh, sure,
I mean,
but-
there are people who already worship aliens as gods, so weirdo fucking theosophists and shit. So
but my thing is, are they ever going to approach that again with this new film that they're doing? Probably not in this new film, but in this new kind of lore they're exploring.
they probably will, but I think it'll be very, very subtle. I think,
And like down the road.
maybe not even down the road. Like I'm sure, like I would be very surprised if you don't get some religious content or imagery in Superman
Legacy?
Legacy. Yeah, I'd be very surprised. Which well, maybe I'll save this. We can talk a little bit maybe about the slate. I think you'll be very surprised about which project I'm the most excited for.
What is happening, everybody? My name is Julius, and I am here once again with a podcast that we are going to tolerate comics here. It's been too goddamn long since I've done a comic podcast with a friend, and actually, once again, you're here to do a podcast with me about comic books.
I am.
Believe it or not, I did try doing one a couple weeks ago with Justin, but that's when it was raining again.
Yeah.
But it was raining much heavier.
Yeah.
Blackouts are happening, and we were doing it over Zoom, and everything went off. So there was no way of doing it.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we're making up for lost time here. So we might talk about some of the similar topics that I was talking to with Justin. But what's up, Axley? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just because we were talking about
Superman.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd be interested to know what you think about, because I don't think we really talked about the DCU slate. I'd be interested to hear what you think about it. I know you talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, I talked about it with Justin.
Yeah, but
project by project. But like, what did you want to?
Well, I'm curious.
What were you thinking?
I'm curious more what you think about it, because I feel like Justin talked more about it than you did. Just what
Of the slate?
Yeah, the slate, or just like general reaction on the announcement that he did.
I'm looking forward to it. I just I understand why they're going in this direction.
Yeah.
Of like a lot of obscurities being brought in. I do wish there was more focus on the central
The
part
seven?
of the. No, not the seven.
They are the seven.
No, no, get out of here with that, dog. But no, Superman would whoop Homelander's ass without a doubt.
Okay, yeah, but that's because he has way more powers than Homelander.
But Homelander's a bitch. Bro.
Yeah.
Homelander's a bitch. He's not.
Homelander also fights dirty, though.
Yeah, don't matter. It don't matter. Superman's winning that shit.
What did you do?
Listen, so if Soldier Boy can whoop that ass, Superman's gonna have no problem.
Oh, I mean, Soldier. I was gonna say Soldier Boy was able to whip his ass. God, that's such a heartbreaking scene where he calls him disappointment. Because I didn't initially put together like, oh, that's what his dad said to him. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
That just.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping for those feels with this first chapter of the DCU.
I am.
I don't know. I'm not James Gunn, so obviously, if I were doing it, it would be different.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about what we.
Yes.
And we were. I mean, granted, like we both had a very similar kind of conventional, like very Marvel Phase 1 type idea of what we should do.
Yes.
And this is the slate that he has is very unconventional.
Very different, and that's probably going to be its biggest strength, actually.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to DC lately, like if there's anything they've been praised for, it's putting out films that are different, like Joker or The Batman or Shazam,
the Suicide Squad,
all that stuff. So this has that same variety. It's just all in one universe. Which is, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I do think the idea of including those more obscure characters from the get-go is probably a good idea, so that just so that people don't like lose interest once you've run out of ideas for what to do with the main ones. Like as far as like creative ethos, everything Gunn has outlined, I'm happy with. Like him, talking about really privileging narrative quality above spectacle.
Yeah.
Like that's great. Him talking about using tentpole characters to prop up more minor characters.
Yeah.
That's great. Actually allowing creators to work in different genres and not forcing projects to conform to what is in some sense a really artificial notion of what a superhero story on film looks like. Like that's all great. It's solid both from like a creative perspective and from a business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The slate itself, I think I was less sold on it than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like a lot of the projects, like, because they're so offbeat, I don't know how well they'll do with like normies. Like Creature Commandos.
Creature. I mean, I could see them selling that Creature Commandos easily.
I could see it being a sleeper hit very easily, and it's probably gonna be something I will enjoy because it's so weird and offbeat.
Yeah.
Waller. That one, I think how well that does is probably going to depend on Peacemaker's presence, because I don't know that Amanda. I don't know if Amanda as a character is going to be able to sell that show. Like whether or not
it's going to be Viola Davis who sells
that.
It's
really going to be Viola Davis and John
who they
Cena.
surround.
Yeah, it's going to be her and John Cena that really sell that. Just not knowing anything about what the story is like.
Yeah. I'm interested in the one that I know nothing about. Like I have a sense for pretty much everything in there in terms of the theme and who the characters are, but with the exception of the Authority. The Authority is one I'm interested in.
I've read a little bit about it. That's the one that I'm most concerned about. Just because based on what I know of it and based on what Gunn has said, it's like I don't know that audiences are going to be interested in seeing this kind of grim, dark, edgy superhero story. I feel like audiences are kind of done with that. And I also worry, like, worst case scenario, my fear for the Authority is that it ends up feeling like a ripoff of The Boys.
I feel like they're probably going to not ape off The Boys, but like they're seeing that there is a market for that because of something like The Boys.
That's the thing, right? Is like, I said, I don't know how much audiences are going to go for that, but it's like, well, The Boys, but The Boys is also very humorous in a lot of ways. It's dark humor, but it's humor nonetheless. I don't know. I worry about that one. Also, just from like a DC Comics purist angle, like I'm like, these are not original DC characters. They don't have a long storied history in the DC universe. Why are you bringing this in? Especially when you could have just done the Elites, who were basically created as like a XP of the Authority to begin with. So I would have enjoyed the Elite more. Obviously, there's more to draw on in terms of story content with the Authority. But yeah. So,
well, honestly, my thoughts, and it seems like your thoughts for this first chapter are, we'll see.
Yeah,
I am looking forward to some projects more than others.
Yeah,
I am curious about that Batman one. I wasn't expecting, like, for example, pretty like what we pitched in that the Flash reboot film, or Aquaman reboot film. You know what I mean, or Wonder Woman reboot film, because. It's just really soon. Yeah. I understand why they would have to go to other things we haven't really seen for a bit, you know, or at all.
Yeah. Speaking of the, just briefly about the Brave and the Bold, I am happy that they're finally touching Morrison's run on Batman.
I know,
because it's pretty solid. I'm hoping that'll lead into Snyder Capullo's.
They're gonna do weapons grade crystal meth.
Yeah. I'm hoping that I just hope I hope they nail the writing for Damian. Because he can come off really easily as a little bratty shit.
They did a good job in those films.
The animated ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, there's a very fine line to walk with him. You'll be surprised, I think, to know which project that I'm the most excited about, though.
I'm going to guess.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. Because I have a feeling it might be... Well, you said I'd be surprised. So, is it Supergirl?
No.
Oh, okay. Which one is it?
Just keep guessing.
I feel like Swamp Thing is a given, something you would be excited for either way.
Yeah,
because you're a horror guy and everything.
The way for them to do Swamp Thing though is Swamp Thing will fail if they do two things. They give it a big budget and they treat it like a regular superhero film. Like what you need to do with Swamp Thing is you need to treat it like Sam Raimi filming the original the original Evil Dead. Yeah. Like just give Sam. I know they're talking about getting James Mangold to do it. Just get Sam Raimi to Swamp Thing. I would love that.
I think it is going to be a horror film. Which
it is, but I mean, he hasn't done horror films yet, so it's like I don't know.
A little bit more of a gamble.
I would have wanted someone because he's done more like kind of studio big budget films.
They need to bring in John Constantine up in that shit.
They do. Well, he's probably gonna. I mean, they've already said it's gonna be based off of Moore's Run, and Constantine appears in that. So
I'm hoping, man. I'm hoping. But so, which was the one you're most excited about?
I think this will surprise you.
All right,
Lanterns.
You know, that doesn't surprise me, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because you know what? Because for one thing, here's why I don't think it's. Here's why I'm not surprised. Because it's not a movie, it's a show.
Okay.
Where they can get there's a more space to explore those characters.
Sure.
Pun intended. Actually, not intended.
You talking about
space?
Do you want to?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about exploring their bodies. I don't know.
What in the? No. The only thing about that is a little surprising to me is the whole color spectrum thing.
Yeah, because I've talked before about how I really don't like a lot of the lore.
And why is that?
It's number one, resurrecting Hal undoes a whole it undoes a whole bunch of his character development to just reset it to the status quo of basically the 60s, which is I'm not happy about. I hate the idea of the color avatars. I hate that Hal's heel turn to Parallax is basically the consequence of him being infected by a cosmic tapeworm. Having the different lantern cores, the rainbow lantern cores, I think ruins what makes the Green Lantern Corps special. If I had my way, the only lantern cores that would exist would be like the Green Lanterns, the Sinestro Corps, maybe the Red Lanterns, and I guess maybe the Star Sapphires.
But see, the problem there is that, when you introduce that there are more than green, naturally people are going to start thinking, there are all their colors out there, and what do they represent?
I know. I don't know. I mean, this gets more generally like if I really dig down to it, like I'm not super satisfied with like Green Lantern's lore post Golden Age. Like I actually like Alan Scott just in terms of like just his lore the most.
I like Alan Scott also.
Like it feels it's the one that I have the least trouble suspending my disbelief with, because like at the point at which you introduce the avatars and the whole rainbow spectrum and stuff like the Blackest Night prophecy, like you can't tell me that Green Lantern is a science fiction character anymore. He's basically a fantasy character. It's the same thing with the Flash. Like at the point at which you introduce the Speed Force as like a living entity and you have the Dark Flash, like he's not really a science fiction character.
Well, it's more science. I think they've always been, especially Green Lantern has always been more science fantasy than fiction. More akin to a Star Wars than a Star Trek.
I mean, I would say moving into the Golden Age and the Modern Age, definitely more so. I don't know so much about the Silver Age. Obviously the Silver Age science fiction looks weird to us, because it is still drawing very much off of like kind of myth and legend. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I could see that, I guess.
Because if we're talking about if we're having the conversation about adaptation by decade,
sure,
you know what I mean? These characters start to stop being who they were at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, we kind of talked a little bit about it with the whole M.O.D.O.K controversy.
It's not even M.O.D.O.K.
But, I mean, that doesn't really matter.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't, though.
Yes, it does.
M.O.D.O.K has always been a joke, pretty much. And
no!
You're actually... M.O.D.O.K has not been considered a joke for the majority of his history in Marvel Comics.
Not from what I know.
But what do you mean? What about him am I supposed to take super seriously? Am I supposed to see M.O.D.O.K in a film and treat it as seriously as Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight?
Because he is actually a threat. Like he's actually insanely powerful. And there is a way that you can do it where he is actually genuinely terrifying and scary. Like you just have like you introduce him and he looks weird, and then he just slaughters everyone in the scene.
I understand what you're talking about, but the Ant-Man movies are not that, types of
Sure, but
films.
then don't include M.O.D.O.K, and also like don't hire someone like I think it's Michael Waldron who wrote the screenplay.
Yeah, I think that's his name. Yeah.
Don't include someone who has made it very clear from his comments in interviews that he doesn't respect comics. Who says that he's just going to treat M.O.D.O.K as a dumb big head, as a joke. Like I'm
not offended by the notion of taking a character that I've considered mainly as a joke and being treated as a joke.
Okay, that's fine. But I don't feel like that's the thing is like at what point does
I agree with you in the first part of that. The treating comics as like not. I'm not taking them seriously.
Yeah.
You do have to take them seriously to a certain point, but like with an Ant-Man movie,
Sure, but like even then, like you're saying, I mean, this is the slippery slope, right?
Mm-hmm.
At what point does that logic allow you to just not take this seriously and to totally disrespect the IP?
I think and that's a fair point, because if we were talking about, say, say the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Where they do things like this, where they are pretty, crazy, like
sure,
a lot of crazy imagery that, in other contexts you couldn't take seriously.
Yeah, it would be hard to suspend your disbelief.
Exactly. But they sell it because of the heart of those films. And
yes,
also
exactly.
When we look at like how that story starts with Peter Quill, it starts with him seeing his mother die from cancer, so it starts on a very real notion, and then they get kind of crazy from there on and everything.
Right. They don't make fun of his mother dying.
No. And with this, I don't know, like there are places for M.O.D.O.K being a little more serious, I guess, like that show they did with Patton Oswalt,
sure,
where it was a comedy show, but there were parts of it that were a little existential and more fun, or more serious than not.
Sure.
But I don't know. I wasn't mad. Like, I understood why some people might be like, well, that's kind of, that's not how it is in the comics. But talking again about the slippery slope, like they've done adaptations like this in the MCU before.
Sure.
Early days of MCU, they've done this. So,
what are you thinking of in that instance?
Well, like for like the Mandarin, twist.
Sure, I wouldn't approve of that either.
You wouldn't approve of them doing the Mandarin like that?
No, that's actually one of the early things that I wasn't happy about in the MCU was them not faithfully adapting the Mandarin and then ultimately retconning that and be like, oh, we actually are, Mandarin exists.
Right.
But he's a composite character. I would have just preferred if they went to it just from the start. Because this is the thing, right? Like the MCU, like with stuff like this, with stuff like the MCU, you're not trying. It's not meant to be an Elseworlds, right? You're meant to be.
It is and it isn't.
You have some wiggle room, but for the most part, I expect the filmmakers to pretty faithfully adapt the IP. You can make some innovations.
And they've done that a lot. I mean, they did Civil War, before getting to Thanos. In the comics, Thanos came way before Civil War. And Civil War wasn't even like the adaptation of Civil War as we know it.
Yeah. But, broadly speaking, I do expect filmmakers in adaptations to hew fairly close to the established canon.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, and I've thought about this myself in terms of like because I've written just my own kind of like fan fiction ideas of like what I would do with certain characters like Batman especially.
Sure, yeah.
So I've thought about this, and there is a I guess how would you say it? Basically, there's a balance to be struck between fidelity and innovation. But when innovating, you need to, I think, maintain the kind of core essence of the characters. And you do need to treat them with some respect. And I think that, speaking specifically with M.O.D.O.K, and I think, there are probably other instances with the MCU more generally where I think you could be criticized for that.
Sure, but I feel like in terms of the respect, you know what I mean? Since we're talking about M.O.D.O.K, let's talk about him. I feel like it would be what you're saying about okay, they took M.O.D.O.K and they just straight up disrespected him. If they had just killed him rather than redeemed him, what they in the film, they spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but they do redeem him in a way.
Yeah, and they clown on him immediately afterwards.
Well,
you're like, no, you're not an Avenger.
But my point is, well, I mean, okay, but my point is, he didn't die.
No, they clown on him.
No, I'm not saying they didn't. I'm not saying that he didn't. The way he died, I'm not saying it was fucking Tony Stark's death. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they could have just, when he showed up, it's M.O.D.O.K, right?
Sure.
Just killed his ass, and he is kind of disrespected by Kang. Like, Kang is like, don't talk unless you're unless you're talked to, or don't talk when you're in the room with me.
Sure, yeah,
like that.
I'm fine with that, because Kang is,
that's what Kang is.
That's
right?
it's relative. That's relative power level.
But
I'm fine with that.
Like what I'm saying is the ultimate disrespect is like if they just showed, hey, isn't this character stupid, and then kill him.
Sure, but that's an issue of degrees. So it's not like, yeah, of course, would it have been more disrespectful if they'd done something like that? Yes.
Right.
That's not what they did. What they did was still disrespectful, I think.
I mean, I think it's ultimately, I don't know. I know it's an Ant-Man movie. It's not meant to be taken super seriously, especially with the routes they took, but everything. But like, it kind of did speak to me. I kind of did like the idea of taking the villain from the first film, who did have a lot of beef with Hank Pym and everything and all that, and bringing him in, and he's in this smaller place in his life, literally and figuratively. He's in this smaller place, and he only sees himself as the bad guy because that's how he's treated, and then he gets this chance to, in a way, redeem. I know they make the joke and everything. It's M.O.D.O.K and everything, but I don't know. It did speak to me.
Sure. I mean, I would guess what I would just say for closing off the conversation is why
didn't they show his M.O.D.O.K?
No. We do see his ass.
We do
in shadow. But no, because you were saying it's an Ant-Man film. It's not meant to be taken seriously. And it's like, well, why?
Not super seriously. There are stakes.
Sure, but I guess like that. I mean, that's the thing. Just with the MCU generally is as the kind of that comedy. You can't see, but I'm doing numerous air quotes here.
Fingering the air.
As that comedy has crept in, it just feels more and more like, even with the stakes, it's just the films are written in such a way that the comedy is included in such a way that it just like immediately undermines them, and they don't like. It's not like they don't let the drama actually breathe. You're just like hit with a joke, and it's not even like a necessarily great joke. Like I heard one person describe it as like a general experience, where like they had gone to the theater to see the movie, and there were maybe a dozen people in there, and they didn't hear like any laughter during the jokes. They heard like maybe some titters here and there, and they described it as like it's not like it's so like kind of studio machined, where it's not meant to appeal to any one specific person. Mm-hmm. It's meant to appeal to general audiences.
Right.
Which the moment that obviously like with general audiences, there's a more specific meaning you can take from it. But like the moments that you try to appeal to the most number of people, you immediately start to appeal to less and less people.
The thing is, I'm not saying that this is my favorite of the MCU.
No, I don't think that.
And I do agree to a certain extent that if we're talking specifically about his death, which let's just say, for argument's sake, those who felt disrespected, that's probably the most disrespectful point, his death scene. I do agree to an extent that there's there's a better way of handling it. If I were editing the film, I'd probably cut out the jokes, probably to let the drama breathe, like you said, because that's why the Guardians films work. But I think,
well, apparently,
I don't know.
Apparently the movie was supposed to be darker, but they went back at, I think maybe like, I don't know how many months before release, but not too long before the release. And they reshot a lot, to make it, more humorous. Because originally it was supposed to, it wasn't like there wasn't any humor in it, but it was supposed to be a lot darker, a lot
Yeah.
more dramatic, which I would have appreciated. It would have, I think it would have. It feels more tonally appropriate given that you're supposed to be introducing Kang, who's supposed to be an Avengers level threat.
Mm-hmm.
It was even supposed to, originally the original cut of the film was supposed to end with, at the very least, why am I not remembering Paul Rudd's character?
Scott Lang.
Scott, yeah, I can never remember Scott's name. But originally it was going to end with Scott trapped in the Phantom Zone. I don't know if the others were able to make it out or not, but he was supposed to be stuck there
Again.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I could also talk about the issues that I have with how they've handled Kang, where like in each iteration that we've seen him before, he keeps getting defeated, and so it's like how threatened am I supposed to feel by him? Really,
I was pretty. I'll be honest with you. I was pretty intimidated. Because first of all, I don't think he's dead.
Well, that's the thing is he's not dead, but
Yeah.
he keeps getting defeated. So it's like why am I? He's supposed to be an Avengers level threat, but Ant-Man can take him out on his own.
But if we're going with that, like, in a Batman story, Joker keeps getting defeated and he keeps coming back and everything.
Yeah,
and he's the greatest villain of Batman.
But it consistently takes Batman to take him out. Whereas with Kang, they're building him up to be this big that's the other thing too, is like Kang is a multiversal threat.
Mm-hmm.
But he's taken out by Ant-Man, who is not tremendously powerful. He's one of the more minor members of the Avengers. Whereas, Joker, I mean, I don't know, not a street level threat, but, there's a more even power difference between Joker and Batman.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think, I don't know. It's kind of what they're trying to do with Kang here is I think they're trying to differentiate him from Thanos in that with Thanos, they built him up by showing very little of him.
Yeah.
And with this, they want to show up front why Kang is as big a threat as he is.
Sure.
And they want to show that physically. And with Jonathan Majors looking like how he does, you have to show that physically and everything. And like there's a scene in this film where I was intimidated by him, where he is slaughtering just a bunch of people. Oh, hey, kitty, how you doing? What's up?
That is my orange one.
Oh, what a cutie. Where he's just mowing down all these people, like all these freedom fighters and everything.
Sure.
And I was like, holy shit, this guy will fuck up the Avengers. Like, he will. And I know, it's getting memed on. I saw a meme this morning of the whole ants taking them down and everything, but
pretty smart ants.
They are smart, man, bro. If ants were big, bro, ants would.
This is why I have problems with how Kang was defeated by Bolshevik ants.
Yeah,
why? How is
awesome.
How is he going to be difficult for the Avengers to take out? I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. He was taken out by Bolshevik ants.
They weren't they weren't like regular sized.
No,
ants.
They're not. But they're still
ants are fucking strong, dude. Are you kidding
ants.
me? They're fucking strong. Ants, what they can do together. And by the way, what did I don't know. It didn't bother me that much, honestly, because when he comes back, it's the same thing with the Joker thing. Like, if Joker can keep getting beaten by Batman, why should I care if he gets out again?
It's the power differential.
I don't see it being as big an issue, just because I could see why, with what they expressed in this movie, why Kang can fuck with the Avengers, with him destroying because it's not like this was his first fight, versus the ants or versus Ant-Man or anything. Like, he has killed Avengers before at this point,
Sure.
It's gonna be raw. It's gonna be fucking raw style, dude.
I mean, I don't know if it will be, but
we'll
agree to disagree on this.
Yeah, man. And plus, you have to remember, since this is an Ant-Man film, and if we look at his presence in the MCU is entirely, he is an underappreciated Avenger, not only in real life, but in their world's context.
Sure.
He's pretty much the underdog, which is why they had that line of well,
I mean, they kept having to retool his identity in the comics.
What do you mean?
I mean, they kept with Pink, I think Hank cycles through 3 different identities. Ant-Man, Giant Man.
Oh yeah,
They finally snag onto something interesting with him with Yellow Jacket.
right.
At which point they introduce Scott, and Scott. I think most people like Scott better as Ant-Man than Hank.
Yeah, Hank's an asshole, but yeah,
And we don't talk about Hank beating his wife.
No. But my thing is like
Janet's fucking stuck between Ultron and Hank. Poor Janet.
with Ant-Man, he's always been like the guy you don't expect to have the most important role in the story, which is why he's great in Endgame. So I think they're trying to do that with him here. It's like, yeah, you think Ant-Man's gonna beat fucking Kang and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see in the Avengers movie and everything. I personally think he is going to fuck some things up in there.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some comics we've been reading. Have you been reading any?
Yes, I have. I actually have been reading a fair bit. You should go first, though.
Okay.
Because my comic book choices will lead into the last part of our conversation.
Well, so will mine. So,
you tell me what you have.
Well, I have Fables.
Okay.
And I have Batman: The White Knight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to read that.
Yeah, so
it sounds really fun, and it
is fun.
It solves a problem that I have with Harley's characters. I fucking hate what they've done with Harley since the New 52. I hate this. It's bad. This goes to the whole thing.
Here, hold up. Let's talk about Fables first. Yeah. Okay, so with Fables, it's a classic book. Fables is what they do is they this came out I think in the early 2000s. Fables originally was published then, and it's taking old school, fairy tales characters like Snow White, Cinderella, and everything, putting them in a more contemporary context. Very similar to that show Once Upon a Time, almost.
Yeah.
Except that it's rated R, first of all, and it's a crime drama.
Yeah.
Starring the wolf from Three Little Pigs as a detective and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's great. The artwork's great and everything.
This isn't a different volume of the Mia Wallace Duck book that you showed me earlier.
No,
is it
no.
Different one.
No,
okay.
This is different. If anything, that's Tales of Mother F. Goose.
I didn't say Mother Goose.
And I guarantee you they were inspired by Fables.
I didn't say I had a feeling one of them was inspired by the other.
Yeah, I think that other one is a more like a more recent publication.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a really good book. Really good. I mean, it's classic at this point. It's one of those independent comics you hear recommended when you're asking someone what indie comics do you want me to read and everything. Yeah. Fables will probably be brought up because it's even though it is crime and it's rated R, I could see it having a wide appeal to all sorts of readers and everything. So I really love the first volume, Fables. It was a good read. I forgot to mention one book that I read recently. It's a very short one. I think it's called Super Gods. This
is not Grant Morrison's.
No, I don't think it's Grant Morrison. Here, let me just look it up real quick. But Super Gods, it's kind of a comic book about different cultures' deities that the current societies, ranging I think from the 50s to the end of the world, they try to create superhumans based on their deities.
Interesting.
So there's one for the U.S., there's one for India.
Okay.
And they're based off of different cultures, religions, and everything. And I think it's a Mark Waid book, actually.
Okay.
Or Mark Waid I think it's Mark Millar.
Okay.
Mark Millar, not Mark Waid. Mark Millar.
Very different writer.
Yeah, you could see Mark Millar writing a book like this for sure.
I can already imagine what this is like, yeah.
Yeah, man, it gets really violent, and it starts from the end of the world. You see London burning down and everything, and it's after these figures and gods have fought and taken each other out, and you're hearing the story from the scientist who's telling it, and it's one of those really interesting nihilistic comics you'll read from the indie creator and everything.
Interesting.
And but it is I think very insightful in terms of how we treat religion, how cultures treat religion differently, and some people weaponize it, some people use it for the way it was meant to be used and everything. And And I thought it was a really interesting read.
Nice.
And now the third and final book that I want to bring up, that I brought up and teased to you, is Batman the White Knight.
Yeah.
Damn.
Really
good.
I've heard really, really good things about it,
It's
and I've been meaning
good.
to read it. I think a library near me has a copy of it.
Oh, well, you should read it when you get a chance.
Yeah.
It's fucking good. It's very. It feels like almost like a really hardcore version of the animated series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of got that a little bit, because they've got now multiple books in that series or that universe. And
Yeah.
I think they've also now done like a Batman Beyond version.
Yeah, they have from what I remember, they have Curse of the White Knight, which is I think a follow up story. I think that includes Azrael. And they have Beyond the White Knight, which
that's
is
what it is.
Batman Beyond, and it's really cool. I love the art style in it. It deals with the idea, which we're probably going to talk to, because I'm curious. When you asked me to talk about this specific thing, I read this book to kind of pick up some points. It deals with the idea of Batman. We always hear that Batman creates the enemies and everything, creates the villains because of his presence, but we very rarely hear about Batman not wanting to let them go, because then Batman becomes purposeless.
Yeah. Becomes obsolete.
Exactly. We heard that a little bit in the Lego Batman movie, funny enough. But it's an interesting theme in this book, because the idea of it is that, Batman and the Bat Crew are chasing Joker once again, and they get him. And then Joker, I think he takes this medication that turns him from the Joker alter ego to this other one called Jack Napier.
Yeah. Cures his insanity.
Yeah. Cures insanity. And then he becomes someone who's very remorseful and wants to, create a whole other Gotham, a more brighter, positive version of Gotham.
Yeah.
He runs for, I think he runs for the mayor.
He runs for mayor.
Yeah. And he's
mayor.
The mayor.
That's an idea. I could run for mayor.
I will run for the mayor. But Batman is obviously the one who's like, okay, what's he doing? What's he up to here? He's very suspicious.
He's got some long con going on.
Yeah, something's happening here, but we're following pretty much Jack. It's a split up story between Batman and Joker in a very different way.
Yeah.
And you start to like Jack. You really do start to like him. And then he gets a rehabilitated Harley Quinn on his side and everything. The police are trying to... What the fuck? Why are there so many parallels to this and the Lego Batman movie? But the police are trying to
this came after the Lego Batman movie.
I think it did. I don't
shortly
remember.
after, I think.
Yeah, but around the same time I think it came out.
Yeah.
But the cops are trying to integrate Batman and everything.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting story about Batman, you're kind of a dick, dude. You're kind of an asshole, dude, and you're fucking things up even more. Because is this about vengeance or is this about rehabilitation? Which one is it? So I really enjoyed the book because of that. The art style is really cool. They homage pretty much everything Batman. Yeah. Ranging from the animated series to the live action films.
There's a lot of Easter eggs in the art that I've seen.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
And it's not even, it's just Easter eggs for Easter eggs' sake. Yeah. They incorporate them. He has different versions of the Batmobile.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen that in a lot of comics recently. Actually, I've usually seen in illustrations of the Batcave, they'll usually have. Keaton's Batmobile is usually there. I've usually seen something approximating the animated series one. Sometimes I've even seen the '60s TV show one.
The Tumbler.
I've seen more recently. I've started to see the Tumbler in there. Sometimes they'll have the Dark Knight Returns Batmobile. Yeah, it's always fun. Tank. I love that one.
Yeah. the
rubber bullet.
The Batmobile.
Rubber bullets. Honest.
I think they incorporate all of them in this book. Because they do have the 60s one. They have the Tim Burton one. They have the animated series and the Tumbler. I think they have, or maybe it's in a more recent one, they have the Matt Reeves Batmobile,
which I think is maybe my favorite one.
It's a good one, yeah. Yeah, it's just it's a muscle car. It's fucking awesome, dude. But yeah, this is a really good one. I recommend it to all Batman fans and everything. It's a great mod, because I know you're not a fan of like Tom King's Batman and everything.
Yeah, I'll actually I'm going to talk about that in a moment.
Oh, okay. Well, this is probably the antithesis to that regarding Tom King's Batman. So, what have you got?
Yeah. Well, before I briefly go into this, I should say part of the reason why I like White Knight is it also solves a problem that I have with Harley's
Oh yeah,
characterization. I won't spoil it because it's a fun twist part of the comic. But I'll just say, yeah, it solves a big problem with the discontinuity in Harley's Harley's characterization in going from the New 52 going forward. So just know that.
Yeah, and it is Elseworlds, by the way. It's not main continuity. It's the Black Label.
I was gonna say, yeah, technically DC Black Label.
Yeah,
because they don't do Elseworlds anymore, unfortunately.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah. So the stuff that I'm trying to find my note. Did I delete it? Okay, yeah. So the stuff I actually have quite a few. So the first one I'll touch on because this is just very brief. I decided to read because the library near me has all of Tom King's run on Batman. So I decided that I'm going to go through and read his entire run front to back, try and give him a fair shake. Because I know that I have a hate boner for Tom King, and I know that's not necessarily justified given that I really haven't read his run. I've mostly been going off of like just kind of isolated panels or scans, or just like kind of flipping through stuff and being like, oh, what the fuck? Ugh.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm going to go through and read front to back his run. I started off with the first volume, I Am Gotham. I'd heard good things about his earlier Batman stuff. I've heard that it was better than the later ones.
Is that where they have those superpowered heroes coming into Gotham? What Gotham Girl and
Gotham and Gotham Girl.
Gotham
I wish they had called him Captain Gotham.
Captain Gotham.
Because Gotham is just kind of, I don't know. That's boring.
He should have just taken Gordon's name. Police Commissioner Gordon.
Oh no. But yeah, so I started with that. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's just kind of mediocre. The writing is like I really like the idea of introducing two metahuman superheroes to Gotham, because up until then, like, it's really been kind of the playground of non-powered superheroes. So I like that idea. And they have kind of interesting ideas in terms of how they develop the two characters. But it's not. I don't know. I don't know that it's executed super well necessarily. It's decent. Just the writing, the overall writing, the dialogue is not super great. It feels a little wooden in some places. Batman in particular feels slightly wooden. I don't know. Something about his dialogue feels slightly weird. Yeah, and then just the art is not really anything special either.
It's David Finch, right?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Just overall, I would just call the book kind of just bland.
A little dull.
Yeah, it's not anything special, I would say. It's okay. I think a different writer, in the hands of a different writer, I think the premise could have been a lot more.
Yeah, you'd probably like The White Knight.
I'm very much sure I would like The White Knight. Moving on for that, I also read Forever Evil, both the main storyline, the main miniseries, and then I also read the Justice League tie-in to that. For those who don't know, Forever Evil was the first crossover event in the New 52. It was all about the arrival of the Crime Syndicate of America, which is the Earth 3 version of the Justice League. They're all kind of like
the mirror version.
Yeah, they're like the mirror universe from Star Trek. They're all super villainous versions of the Justice League. So you have like Ultraman, Owlman, Superwoman, Power Ring, Johnny Quick. Atomica, Deathstorm, and well, he's not from Earth 3, but you have Grid, who's this sentient. I think he's explained either as like a sentient computer virus or an AI gone rogue that is part of Cyborg's suit that separates itself from him. And that's the Justice League tie-in is mostly about Grid and Cyborg in conflict, and Cyborg basically learning to reaffirming his humanity and learning how to control his body without the help of the Grid AI.
I love those characters, man.
Yeah.
The Crime Syndicate's always been one of the best.
Easily my favorite Justice League supervillains. Easily.
They got to do them in the films at some point.
I really hope they do.
Yeah.
Like the Crime Syndicate is so good. They're just really, really great. Like
it's just classic comic book,
Well, yeah, it's like it's kind of a silly idea, but it's executed so well. And I love alternate history, and Earth 3 has a big component of alternate history to it. Yeah, it's
not like Earth X, where Earth X is the Nazi,
which is kind of like it's whatever. I mean, we've seen this 1,000 times, but yeah, Earth 3 is so fun because they come up with so many interesting innovations or reversals for the characters. It's really fun. Highly recommend it. Both the Justice League tie-in, because you get some really fun moments with Victor and his father, as well as the Metal Men who show up.
The Metal Men show up. Yeah. I've never read Forever Evil. I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with that great panel of them like entering, like them all, and Ultraman. He says something like, "Where we survived" or something.
Yeah.
That's
I forgot.
Beautiful.
I forgot to mention. Also, Sea King is the Aquaman.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Who has a great design that is like it's a really neat mix of, it's like 90s Aquaman where he had like the hook hand, but it's like a lobster claw, and he's got like the beard and like he's blind in one eye, and he's got like the really heavily armored suit, but it's done in Ocean Masters purple and blue palette.
That's so cool.
They're so well designed.
I before you get to the next one regarding the Crime Syndicate, a good intro to them is the animated film Crisis on Two Earths.
Yes.
Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, where Justice League meet the Crime Syndicate, and you'll completely get it.
Fun ensues. Also just briefly, the main storyline also has some really great moments between Lex and Bizarro. It does a really amazing job of actually kind of, in a way, humanizing Lex. Like, he has a really good, well-written father-son dynamic with Bizarro, where he doesn't initially accept him and just kind of treats him like a tool, but by the end he actually forms an emotional bond with him.
That's wonderful.
It's really good. Like, I cried at the end of it. It's really well done.
Is this what led, like, this story is kind of like what led Lex Luthor to later join the Justice League?
Yeah, this is what precipitates him joining the Justice League.
It's similar to like when Marvel they did the Secret Invasion.
Yeah,
Norman Osborn.
I can say Norman Osborn becomes Iron Patriot.
Yeah, and then because of his involvement in ending the Secret Invasion, he got the head of Hammer, the Dark Avengers, and all that. Yeah. Similar to that?
Yeah, kind of. And they have like they have kind of like an anti-Justice League that forms, or anti-Justice League. I mean, it's basically like the Justice League, but film or full of their like villainous counterparts. So it's like Luthor, Bizarro, Batman, and Catwoman are also there because they're like the only they're the only Justice League members that survived. And then also Sinestro, Black Adam,
Black Manta.
Yes, Black Manta and Captain Cold. Which there's a Black Adam shows up in the Justice League tie-in for Forever Evil, and he's a really amazing fight with Ultraman. It's really well done. I gotta
read this shit.
It's really good. I highly recommend it. So that's Forever Evil. The next thing I'll talk about is I guess I'll talk about Black Canary. So I have been, partly for research, partly for pleasure, I've been reading like old Golden Age comics.
Oh, okay.
Just for the superhero story that I've been writing. And I decided, I'll do Black Canary. It was really, really fun. I just picked, I think it's called like the Black Canary Archives or something, where it's collecting all of her earliest adventures. Really, really great.
Is it a showcase?
DC
showcase? Or?
I think it's just called, like I said, Archives.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's really, really good. It's so unself-conscious, those early stories, which is part of what makes it so refreshing for me to read. And it's interesting too, because the Canary initially didn't have her own series. She initially appeared in a Johnny Thunder story, which this is now the third time that we've mentioned Johnny Thunder on this podcast, which is more times than most people mention Johnny Thunder in their life
ever.
Yeah. But those early stories with her are really, really fun. Both because like Dinah. I get the two mixed up because I'm basically compositing Wonder Woman and Black Canary in the story that I'm writing. Like Dinah, like number one, she's a really well-written character with a really strong personality. Like, you hear about like, strong women characters, and like they're 90% of the time they're not very well written. They're very bland and uninteresting. They'd have no obstacles to overcome. Like Diana is God, I did it again. Dinah, like she actually fails. She makes mistakes, but she learns from them and she gets up again. And also on top of that, like she's not a damsel in distress. She handles herself really well. She's really, really kind of feisty and fiery. Like she has this, I think, there's this one, it's in a later story when she actually had her own series. She has this interaction with her boyfriend who's this kind of like, I don't know, like, kind of braggart, slightly boobish, private detective. She has this wonderful exchange where he's like kind of teasing her and she like threatens to throw some flowers at him that reminded me of, I think it's specifically My Girl Friday. Or just kind of like women in like Howard Hawks films.
Yeah.
It was just a total breath of fresh air. And those early Johnny Thunder comics in particular were very interesting to read and fun too. Because I mean, number one, I don't know if you ever read Tintin, but they remind me a lot.
I read a little bit of Tintin.
I was obsessed with Tintin in middle school.
They're fun books.
They're really fun. Yeah. And the kind of adventure stories that, and more specifically, the kind of more crime-oriented ones that Tintin tells, the Johnny Thunder stories reminded me a lot of those.
Yeah.
Which was fun.
I could see that. Yeah.
And also just like Johnny Thunder's character is also really fun. Like he's a massive boob.
Yeah.
Like he's not a superhero. He's just some dude in a suit who has a genie and a lamp that he can summon with a magic word. And he, like, when he beats up criminals, he does it on accident. He's like, he's totally full of himself. He saves the day totally on accident. He's a really, really fun character.
Mm-hmm.
But it was bizarre though, because his sidekick, the genie Thunderbolt, he does like some fucking Deadpool shit.
Like what?
Like he breaks the fourth wall in the
really?
1940s, where like he zooms in and he's like holding.
Book?
Yeah, he's holding a copy of Flash Comics, and he references multiple times that he's in a comic book. It was the most bizarre, surreal thing to see in the 1940s. It was really fun and weird.
It's interesting. They did a lot of. That's clear that during that time they were really still finding their way.
Yeah,
early comic books. Like if you read like the original. Like some of the original magazines that had those kinds of drawings in them.
Yeah.
I
think is a good example.
Mad is a good example, but
that's a very self-conscious parody.
Yeah, you see the beginnings of like the how panels were starting to be formatted and everything, and no one really knew how to treat the lore at all back then, and him holding the comic is very much it's
decades ahead of its time.
Yeah,
like that's like it's incredibly postmodern. You don't see you wouldn't expect to see something like that until at least the 80s.
Well, because you know for a fact they weren't expecting breaking the fourth wall to become what it did. You know what I mean? For characters like Deadpool and She-Hulk and all of them to do it, and it's a part of their character, and it's an important, distinguishable part of their characters.
Right.
You know what I mean? For them, it was just a joke. You know?
Well, that's the other thing too, is that like no one else references it besides Thunderbolt. Like that's part of what makes it so surreal. Like he's the only one who's aware of it. But yeah, it was.
I'm surprised they didn't incorporate stuff like that with the Doomsday Clock because Johnny Lightning's a big part of that.
Yeah, Thunder's in there, but Thunderbolt is not. Poor Johnny Thunder. He's really kind of a sad, broken down old man in that.
I know, but like they bring him back, and they bring the whole idea of that he's like the linchpin to the original Earth 2 and everything, and all that continuity. I'm surprised they didn't make like Johns is a very meta writer.
Yeah.
Especially in something like Doomsday Clock. I'm surprised they didn't like, the lightning bolt guy is just like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Shit. He pulls up a copy of Watchmen. And it's like pulls a lighter.
It's really, really good. I highly recommend people check it out, just because, like I said, it's so unselfconscious, and in a period where we're still in this kind of dark age of comics where, and I'll talk about it maybe the next time you have me on. I've been reading or listening to Grant Morrison's Super Gods on audiobook, and he kind of talks about the kind of problems of they kind of push for relevance and realism in comics, starting in the kind of like late Silver Age, going forward in the Bronze Age, and then really reaching its zenith in what we would call the Modern Age. But yeah, it's just it's so unselfconscious, and it's really wonderful and refreshing. After that, I think the last comic that we'll talk about, or that I'll talk about, that will lead into our next discussion is Action Comics Volume 1, Volume 1 of Grant Morrison's run on Action Comics.
All right.
Full disclosure, I didn't read. There's like 2 halves of this book, and it's got 2 arcs in it.
You didn't read the later half.
I did not read the second half because it deals with the Legion of Superheroes. I don't give a fuck about the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh, man, they're awesome, though.
I don't know. I should give him a chance, but I've never been interested by that.
The kid who turns into the ball.
It's
sick.
It's silver. It's so Silver Age, and I know like, I should get over it, but
that's Morrison's. Like Morrison loves that type of shit.
I know Morrison is really in love with the Silver Age, and I understand why he's attracted to that. I should give it a shot, but I at the time when I was doing this, like I can't get into this. Like especially after the first arc, like I really liked the first arc, but I was like, this is too different. I want something similar. But yeah, the first arc is it's really good. It's more or less a kind of origin story. And I really like it because, specifically for its characterization of Superman, like right off the bat, he does some like Batman level shit, like Dark Knight Returns level shit, where like he's, like the first panel that you see him in, like I think his face is in shadow, like he's a genuinely like menacing kind of figure.
Does his eyes are glowing?
Yeah, his eyes are glowing. Like and this is right after I think he like. I can't remember if it's either like an ice sculpture that he lasers or it's like a champagne tower that he destroys with his laser vision. But yeah, like when he's introduced, he's like basically interrogating this like I think he's like a corrupt land developer.
Oh damn!
And he does like I said, he does some Batman level shit where like because he can't fly, he can only jump because he hasn't fully accessed his powers. But he's like prepared to drop the guy off of like a skyscraper. And he like that's the tool he's using to interrogate him. And he like barely catches him at the end to make sure that, he's still alive and he can be handed over to the police. But yeah, like I really loved it because it's very clearly like Grant Morrison is very clearly, his characterization of Superman is very clearly inspired by the Golden Age, where like Superman in this version of Action Comics is very much like angry leftist Superman, which I like more than any other time I've seen Superman. I think this is the one where I've liked him the most, because he feels, again, like the fact that he's angry leftist Superman. It feels
Sebastian.
Sure. No, I mean like it feels unique. It's a way of setting him apart from other superheroes.
And it complicates him a little bit more as well.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's just really fun, and also like he's Superman, and this is not. He's not at the Daily Planet. He's at the Daily Star. He's just kind of starting off as a reporter and as Superman. Doesn't have his Superman costume. He's got a really cool actually costume where it's just like work boots, jeans, blue shirt with like a Superman logo on it, and then I'm such a big fucking baby. I cried just when I realized this. His cape is not a cape; it's his baby blanket.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm very curious because when we started talking about, or I guess when you started bringing up this run of Superman to me, and I've known about it. I've never read it, but I've known about it. I've been thinking more and more that this is probably the direction they're going to go with for legacy of Superman.
I really hope that I think there's a way that you can send, and we'll talk about this in the discussion we'll have. I keep alluding to this. I'm working.
What is this discussion?
I'm gonna keep working people
to
up.
Be continued.
I mean, people already know from the title, but I think there's a way that you can synthesize like Golden Age and Silver Age Superman. But yeah, I really hope that they borrow a lot from Action Comics. I think that's a way. I think it's going to be a way. Like I said, it's going to be a way of separating Superman out. But going back, he's like just starting out in the Daily Star. He's like got a shitty apartment. He's really like, he's like Superman in the Golden Age, where he's this kind of like crusading social reformer. It's really, really fun. And
all he needs is Crypto.
No, not Crypto. The only way I'll accept Crypto is if he's actually a Shoggoth.
No. he needs to be Crypto.
No.
The super dog.
I can accept that humanoids would evolve in a completely alien landscape. It's a little hard for me to accept that dogs would.
No. Is Crypto the super dog?
It
or
strains,
James
it strains
Gunn?
my substantial
James Gunn
disagree.
might as well cancel this shit now if he has no plans on doing
Actually,
Crypto the super dog.
No, you know what? I will accept Crypto if he's actually who are the guys from Strange Brew? Why am I forgetting their names?
I don't know.
If he's the dog from Strange Brew, where he has a brief scene where he flies in the air with a Superman cape, I'll accept it that.
I want to see Superman walking his dog, Crypto, on the moon. That would be. That's not a wholesome image. Excellent. Come on, man. Come on.
Crypto's so dumb.
No, he's not. What the hell? How is he? How is he dumb?
Superpowered dog is so dumb. I can't.
You are high.
I accept.
You are high.
I accept Bat Cow. I accept Ace.
You accept a cow with
Yes.
the Batman moniker over Crypto?
Yes.
Bat cow?
Yes.
Look, I like Bat
It's
cow.
cute.
No shade on Bat cow.
It's cute. Damien, because Damien's a vegan.
Listen,
That's so cute.
is this the discussion that you were alluding to? Crypto or no crypto?
No.
No.
we should get into it because that's really all I have to say.
Yeah, well-
I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, it's
I'm
really
curious.
refreshing run.
I'm curious what it is you want to talk about because all I know is that you wanted to discuss the politics regarding Batman and Superman specifically, and I honestly didn't know what you meant by that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what this is in regards to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should frame the discussion because it was, what got me. There were a couple things that precipitated me thinking about this question of what is. I should clarify it when I talk about the politics of Batman and Superman. I don't mean like what would their politics be like within the DC universe, but I mean like what.
Like their own personal politics?
Yeah, not that, but what is the
okay.
political ethos underlying the two characters in their mythos? And also, I was thinking about like how do they complement each other
in regards to
each character's political
and you're not
ethos.
specifically just talking, whether in regards to how like the two parties would respond.
No. I don't give a fuck about this. It's not
Okay.
partisan politics. I'm talking about more on a deeper. Symbolic, philosophical, theological level.
Okay, so what's the question?
Well, just what are their politics, and then also how they complement each other. To frame this, because I was thinking about this both because of Action Comics, but also because I revisited The Dark Knight Returns, and
so did I recently.
Great
Yeah.
comic.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, I had revisited a blog post that I came across, I think in middle school, arguing that. Going forward from The Dark Knight Returns, like The Dark Knight Returns establishes Batman very specifically as a neoconservative superhero, which for those who don't know,
that version of Batman,
The
Dark Knight Returns,
and arguably going forward, but
Okay.
definitely with DKR, which for those who don't know, neoconservatism it's a school of American conservatism. It's probably best thought of as a school of liberal conservatism, which is basically combining moderately conservative social issue or stances on social issues with economic liberalism, which when I say American political terminology is fucked up. I need to define all this shit. When I say economic liberalism, I mean like what's called market liberalism. The main thing though that got me thinking about this was at the time that I was reading Action Comics, I was listening to The Righteous Mind on audiobook, which I don't know if you've heard of that at all.
No.
Great book.
Who wrote it?
Highly recommend it. So it's written by a guy named Jonathan Haidt, who is an American social psychologist who specializes in the fields of moral and political psychology, which is what as the name would imply, it's what the book is about. What Haidt's, the main kind of thrust of the book, or the stuff that's kind of most pertinent to this discussion is Haidt's, what would you call it, elaboration of what's called moral foundations theory, which is it's a product of his own research. He elaborated it. The idea is basically that there are 6 different basic moral foundations that underlie every human being's morality and consequently their politics. And the degree to which we're sensitive to each of these foundations in turn determines, like I said, first our morality, then our politics. The foundations are care, fairness, authority, loyalty, purity, and freedom. And I was thinking, based on this, from this particular psychological lens, like what is the political ethos underlying each of these two characters? And I don't know. I mean, just off of that, I would be interested to hear what you think.
Well, when it comes to this idea, I'm thinking more of the way people respond. That's how I look at if these characters were to exist, right?
Sure.
And I would look firstly to there's just the natural response of people before the politics, because politics comes after that. Politics is reactionary for pretty much anything.
Yeah, I mean, and Haidt kind of goes into this where like our justifications for our politics and morality are basically post facto.
Mm-hmm.
And there actually is good psychological evidence to indicate that our brain generates a moral stance first, and then comes up with a justification for that stance later. And that initial reaction is rooted to varying degrees in both our biology and our evolutionary history, and both our experience. It's kind of honed by our experience.
Sure, yeah.
To basically protect us from different situations that we may encounter in our life.
Yeah, and you look at something that happens, you react to it, the emotional response, and then you start thinking, how do we combat that if it's a bad situation, or how do we accept it if it's a good one, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to these figures, like with, I think with Superman, like the thing about these two characters in this regard is that they're both very complicated.
I would say Batman is much less complicated than Superman.
You know what? I think so as well. I mean, it becomes more complicated as narrative is added to it.
This will kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. There's a moment in The Dark Knight Rises where Selina, after she's been given the Bat Pod to help with Batman's plan as far as taking out Bane, she tells him, come with me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't? Sorry.
You good?
Yeah. Sorry. It just gets me really emotional.
I know. Yeah.
You don't owe these people anymore. You've given them everything. And Bruce just says, not everything, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is nothing if not lordly behavior, if not kingly behavior.
Yeah.
That is the appropriate disposition that a healthy monarch has towards his subjects.
Yeah.
Where he feels the subjects are not just bonded to him, but he's bonded to them, and he's bonded to the land that they all live on. And he has a duty and a responsibility to them that he has to fulfill. Until his death. And
that also ties into a point that was brought up in the previous film, The Dark Knight, when they're having the dinner with Harvey Dent and everything, and he talks about the Roman Empire and everything, and how when the government would fail, there was one man who would step up, to defend the city and everything.
That's the other thing is Batman is inherently higher, and Morrison talks about this as well. He's an inherently hierarchical character where Batman is all about, number one, he's about the state of exception.
Mm-hmm.
So he's outside the normal rule of law. And he exists outside both he and just Gotham City generally, you can argue, because Gotham is a fundamentally chaotic place. So he's about fundamentally the reordering, the restoration of order, reordering a fundamentally chaotic world and reimposing a healthy hierarchy.
I like the idea that with Batman, you do have this idea of the mantle, and it continuing to live on, and it becomes a part of the city, just as almost as bigger than any sort of law enforcement, or it just becomes part of the culture of that.
Yeah, and that's again
city.
That's again part of the monarchical aspect, where again like he's above. You mentioned specifically like he's above law enforcement. He's above the law in some sense, where he has this kind of nominally in kind of monarchist politics, you have the idea of like the monarch being above politics in a sense, in the sense of being kind of like apolitical. So that's another way in which he's kind of potentially monarchical figure.
Well, Gotham would definitely treat, and the world largely would treat the Bat family like the royal family, just for vigilantes.
DC treats them like the royal family in terms of how they pimp them out. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for they have that ink already, man. I really it's interesting how I've noticed this a lot in watching because I've started to watch the Arrow show, like that whole world and everything.
Is it your first time watching Arrow?
Yeah, fully.
Really?
Like in completion and everything.
Okay.
I'm on season 3 now and everything.
It's already...
What?
It's already kind of.
Well, you know, I'm not. I'm just kind of watching it at this point.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's interesting to see how, you know, it started with one guy and then it started to spread, and you know, the Arrow's considered by the people. He's considered by law enforcement and politics and world governments all over. And I like it when things evolve in that way. I mean, that's the cool thing about these specifically vigilantes.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's as prominent with Superman. You know, Superman, he's, you know, people just kind of look at Superman, whereas with Batman, there is community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The community of that.
I mean, Bruce has a much more extensive network than Cal does.
Yeah. Because he needs it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have the same kind of power as his Supes. But also, you know, there are only so many Kryptonians. So there's a reason for that.
The only one he can get is like Kara.
Yeah, Kara. Well, there's 2 Karas, obviously, but.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. But and his son now.
Yeah, his son. That's kind of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, that's one of my favorite things about
Connor.
Oh,
There's
Connor, that's true. Yeah, the Kryptonian human hybrid and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that Superman. It's gonna sound weird, but I like that Superman has that kind of vulnerability. You know.
Yeah. Well,
in being alone in that way.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Champion of the Oppressed is I think that's his best tagline that he's had.
Mm-hmm.
I like that way more than like even like Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Like it's just kind of, I don't know.
Well, Champion of the Press speaks more, you know,
it
globally.
It feels more heroic.
Nationally.
Going back to what I was saying about the alleged discontinuity, one of the things I realized is I think Superman, at least for the majority of his life, has been a kind of uniquely statist hero, insofar as, like I said, his politics have aligned him very closely with the American regime as it existed at various points. Does that make sense, or am I just talking at you? I'm sorry. I really
don't know these words.
I'm really trying to.
I know. Listen. Actually, you and I grew up very differently. You care about all this shit. I'm somewhat aware of it, you know, and I find your knowledge of these political definitions and this history, I find it admirable. I wish I knew that shit. But here's the thing. Can I tell you something right now?
Yes.
And this is political.
Yes.
When Trump was in office, and this is the reason I don't like Trump, I wrote him and I said, listen, you'll win me over if you register an extra fucking day in the week. That way I can learn all this shit. He didn't do that. So I just, at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with Sleepy Joe. Fuck this.
Sleepy, creepy Joe.
Yeah. Well, listen, I even though I might not have understood all that, I'll be honest. You gave me something to think about in that these comics they're not 2-dimensional.
No,
they're not.
They never have been.
No. Listen, we're gonna wrap it up because I need some more tea and I have to use the restroom.
Yes.
But actually, I appreciate your insight. I appreciate everything. Yeah, I appreciate you helping me with the recording and everything.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. We're going to now go find Miles, and we're going to take photos of him that I will later Photoshop.
We'll take photos of him while he sleeps.
Yeah, I have a picture of him sleeping actually, so it's awesome.
Do you really?
Yeah, I'll show you in a second.
That's creepy. This is like Mike having stolen Rich's family photo album while they were throwing out his late Nana's possessions.
Oh, what? It's not creepy because his family approved of it, so it's all good. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Stay safe and goodbye.